Hi, I'm Elizabeth Morales-Rico.
Hi, my name is Ishida.
Hello, I'm Giselle Copado.
And hi, my name is Rebecca Truon. And in this video, we are going to be going over the topic of dopamine. First, we are going to start off with the history behind the molecule.
Dopamine was first synthesized in 1910 by George Barger and James Ewins in London, England. The first researcher to identify dopamine in human brains was Catherine Montagu in 1957. Dopamine's function as a neurotransmitter was discovered in 1958 by Arvid Carlsson and Niels Akihilar in Sweden. In the year 2000, Arvid Carlsson was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Physiology or Medicine for showing that dopamine is not just a precursor of norepinephrine and epinephrine, but a neurotransmitter as well. The molecular formula of dopamine is C8H11NO2. It is a monoamine neurotransmitter with positive inotropic activity. It is also a catecholamine. To synthesize dopamine, the amino acid tyrosine is converted to L-dopa. Then L-dopa is decarboxylated to form dopamine. Dopamine is the precursor of norepinephrine and epinephrine.
Dopamine is able to make us happy as it acts as a neurotransmitter. A neurotransmitter is a chemical that is released from the axon terminals of neurons into a postsynaptic cell, and where it gets bound to a receptor. In this case, dopamine is released whenever we feel good and acts as a kind of positive reinforcement. Think of like dogs when we get a treat for good behavior. So more happy moments would mean more dopamine, meaning a good mood. Dopamine is able to be produced in the substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area of the brain. When it's released from the substantia nigra, it helps with movement and speech, and when it's released from the ventral tegmental area, it is associated with behaviors and rewards. It is also a neurohormone that is released by the hypothalamus.
Dopamine is actually a part of a group of 4 neurotransmitters known as the happy hormones. This group includes serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, and dopamine. As they are all labeled as such, their functions are confused at times, or each hormone is interchanged when discussing hormones that have to do with feelings of happiness. Since these differences are key, we are going to go over the differences between these other hormones with dopamine. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter produced in the central nervous system. It is like dopamine as it is also a neurotransmitter, and that is considered a happy hormone. Serotonin is essential for feeling happy, focused, and calm. So one way in which serotonin and dopamine are similar is that the lack of either can lead to mental health conditions such as mood disorders or addiction. Serotonin has other roles in behavior, like memory, attention, reward, anger, and sleep. This is a bit different from dopamine, as dopamine, as mentioned before, is related to the feelings of reward, motivation, and being productive. Outside of the brain, like dopamine, it has a role in regulating digestion, but it also has a role in controlling heart rate and healing wounds. Serotonin is a bit different from dopamine as it is mainly produced in the brainstem, specifically in a cluster called the raphe nuclei. It is then projected to the nucleus accumbens and then to the other parts of the brain, such as the lobes, cerebellum, hippocampus, and spinal cord. Another difference is that serotonin is considered an inhibitory neurotransmitter, whereas dopamine is an excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter. So, serotonin doesn't stimulate the brain, but balances out any excessive excitatory effects of other neurotransmitters. Serotonin and dopamine also have opposite effects on appetite, as serotonin suppresses it, while low levels of dopamine stimulate hunger. Overall, they work together to balance out different effects in the body, but also inhibit each other.
Another neurotransmitter that is a part of the happy hormone group are endorphins. Because both dopamines and endorphins induce feelings of pleasure, they're often mistaken as the same molecule. However, they play different roles in the body. Dopamines are neurotransmitters that influences and boost your mood, while endorphins help relieve feelings of pain and stress. Endorphins are released once your body feels shock or pain, and they bind to receptors to inhibit the release of proteins that are responsible for signaling pain. In this way, endorphins act as the precursor to dopamines, since dopamines are released once endorphins bind to the opioid receptors. As endorphins lead to an increase in dopamine count, it is important to make sure that your body has the appropriate amount. Not having enough can cause a whole variety of issues such as depression, migraines, and anxiety. The last neurotransmitter that is considered a happy hormone are oxytocins, which are responsible for stimulating bonding and trust between humans. Like dopamines, oxytocins are released by the hypothalamus, and they play a role in the sensation of pleasure. However, unlike dopamines, oxytocins are often released during childbirth, and they are responsible for maternal instincts and social bonding. Couples with greater blood oxytocin levels are found to feel more gratitude and love for their partner.
As mentioned before, dopamine plays a big role in how we feel and can be an indication of how healthy we are. Thus, there are diseases that are associated with unhealthy levels. Low levels result in less motivation and excitement for things and is linked to mental illnesses like depression, schizophrenia, and psychosis. High levels or too much concentration in one part of the brain and not enough in the other results in competitive, aggressive behavior and poor impulse control. This can lead to conditions such as ADHD, binge eating, addiction, and gambling. Parkinson's disease is also related to dopamine levels, as the nerve cells that produce dopamine gradually die, and since dopamine helps with muscle control, muscle stiffness results. Some symptoms that can result from an imbalance are muscle cramps, spasms or stiffness, digestion problems like constipation or reflux, pneumonia, and trouble sleeping, but there are many more.
Unfortunately, dopamine transporters are able to be taken advantage of by recreational drugs. One such recreational drug is cocaine. Cocaine acts as a dopamine transporter inhibitor. This means that it blocks reuptake of dopamine back into the neurons, allowing it to stay in the bloodstream for longer periods of time. This creates an intense feeling of euphoria, and it is highly addictive as people become addicted to this feeling of reward that's associated with the long periods of dopamine within the bloodstream.
And with that last point, we are at the end of our video. We hope you enjoyed watching, and to conclude, here are 5 natural ways to increase your dopamine levels.